Hello, dear listeners, and welcome back to my cozy little corner of the internet. My name is Sarah Ashworth, and in the previous episode, we ended with Jasper once again passing out on the beach. In today's episode, we shall continue this intriguing story. So, grab your favourite beverage, sit back, relax, and I shall begin. Chapter 4: Investigation. Jasper's eyes opened wide as he quickly sat up and looked around in a dazed panic. He took a deep breath and tried to take in his surroundings, which gradually swam into view. He saw purple curtains billowing in the breeze as he heard birds singing outside. He saw an oak closet and matching oak desk before looking down and finding that he was in bed. Wait, this was his room. How did he end up back here? He could have sworn that he had left the house. He winced as the memory of the previous night was a blur. Was it real? Did he just dream the whole thing? If he did, it was an elaborate dream. So you're awake. Jasper turned his head slightly and saw his mother sitting on the edge of the bed. Mom? He uttered, as he rubbed his eyes and looked at her again to make sure she was real. How long have you been here? Long enough, she told him, looking back at him with a look of concern that only a mother could give. This is the second time it's happened, and it's concerning. Are you sure you're okay? Is there anything stressing you out? Jasper lowered his head. Now the questions were starting. Nothing more than usual, he answered, though he had to admit she was right. It had happened twice now, and it was a cause for concern, but he just didn't feel ready to tell her at that moment. He raised his head a little as he felt the back of her hand on his forehead. Well, your temperature feels normal, she remarked with relief that he wasn't ill or getting a fever. Still, it might be better if you stayed home today and tried to get some rest. No, I'm fine, he snapped, causing her to stare in shock. Mom, I appreciate your concern, but I'll be fine, really. I'm sure it'll pass, whatever it is. His mother gave him a skeptical look before standing up. If you're sure. I just don't want you pushing yourself too hard if you're not up to it. I certainly won't want to find you on the beach again. Jasper blinked at her words. So it was his mum that found him and brought him back. It wasn't a dream. It did happen. Thanks, Mom. You don't need to thank me. I'm your mother. It's my job to take care of you. But I don't want you going out like that again at night. It's dangerous. Wait, did she think he was sleepwalking? Well, technically it was true, but not in the traditional sense. It must have been that song he heard. It couldn't have been a coincidence. Well, if you're going to school, you should get dressed and get going. I'd hate for you to be late, she told him as she left the room. Jasper looked down briefly, trying to make sense of it all, but he pushed that to the side for now and got out of bed to get dressed. After he was dressed, he made his way downstairs to see his mother talking on the phone and looking over some pictures. He overheard her talking about some more debris being found further out. He gave her a silent wave before he left the house and made the familiar trek to school. As he walked, he wondered if the ship debris and Eric were related. They had to be. It was the only thing that made sense, and with everyone in the school talking about it, and his mother confirming that he was the one that was found on the beach, there had to be a lot more to it. Jasper did his best to focus in class, so that he didn't get into trouble for not focusing and potentially sleeping in class. However, his own thoughts about the current situation kept him awake and surprisingly focused. When class had finished, he was sitting outside racking his brains. From what he heard, several pieces of ship debris were found washed up close to the shore. Eric was also found not long before the debris was. Is it possible that Eric's appearance here and the debris are connected? He thought to himself as he started to write down notes. It couldn't just be a coincidence. He had to find the connection. Penny for your thoughts? A voice called out behind him, making him jump, though he sighed with relief when he saw that it was Mel. Sorry, I didn't mean to scare you. You just looked so deep in thought. Jasper gave her a sheepish smile. Yeah, I just thought there are some things that don't add up. Do you mean with Eric? I just find it odd that he's found washed up on the shore and there's no signs of any ship other than some wreckage that was found. And if there was an accident, that there were no other survivors. It definitely sounds strange. Yeah, I want to look into it, Jasper told her as he stood up. Jasper, no. If something bad did happen, you should just let the authorities handle it. Mel responded. She was shocked that he would even consider doing something like that. Jasper shook his head. I'm not sure of anything yet, but if Eric's hiding something, then I want to know what it is. We're part of the school paper. It's our job to investigate things. Mel reached over to slap Jasper on the back of the head. Ow! Jasper cried out as he rubbed the back of his head when she slapped him. What was that for? Our job is to find stories around the school, report on local community events. It's not our job to put ourselves at risk investigating things that aren't any of our business. A good journalist knows when to leave things well enough alone. Jasper sighed and shook his head. Could he tell her about some of the strange things that had happened, and how they only happened after Eric's arrival? I'm sorry, Mel, but I could find something big. I need to do this. Mel just sighed, clearly giving in. Just promise me you won't do anything stupid. I can't make that promise. Can't or won't? Can it be both? Mel just huffed in frustration. Just don't do anything that could get you into trouble. I'm not so sure I'd be able to bail you out. She gave it a moment to hopefully let her words sink in before she walked away. I can't just let this go, he whispered to himself as he started to head back inside. Twice I was lured to the same place by that song, and I didn't have that problem before he showed up here. He's connected to this. I can feel it. Jasper walked down the hallway searching for Eric. After turning a corner, he soon found the redhead taking a drink from a water fountain. He discreetly went back behind the corner and watched him before he took a notebook out and started to make notes. A moment later, Eric walked down the hallway in the opposite direction. Jasper closed his eyes and focused. He channeled his magic through his hands before crossing them over his chest and sweeping them across his entire body as it slowly faded from sight. Okay, that should give me enough time to follow him undetected, he whispered to himself as he began to follow Eric, keeping a good distance behind him. He saw him talking to a few students and made a note of his findings. Nothing out of the ordinary so far. In class, he focused on his work whilst discreetly watching Eric and making notes, though admittedly he didn't think that Eric would pull anything in class. He just wanted to make sure all bases were covered. For the rest of the day, Jasper followed Eric everywhere, watching his every move and making a note of it. Despite not witnessing anything unusual, Jasper kept going with the belief that Eric would slip up sooner or later. When the final bell of the day rang, Jasper followed Eric out of school while keeping a good distance back. He was curious about where the redhead was going. Maybe he would get to see where Eric was staying. Though the longer they walked, the more Jasper started to realize that they weren't going to any building. Eventually, Jasper followed Eric to the beach and watched as Eric walked right to the shoreline, letting the waves of the sea wash over his feet before the tide went out again. Jasper kept a short distance away and watched the redhead's movements. Eric sighed softly as he looked out to sea. I'm sorry, he whispered as he lowered his head. I'll make it right. I promise. Eric stood in silence as Jasper looked on. Why was Eric apologizing? Who was he apologizing to? Was he showing remorse about something? Jasper quickly made a note of Eric's words and his odd behavior. He would find out exactly what it was Eric was apologizing for. He decided that he had enough to go off for now, and that he would head home to work on it. However, as he turned, he heard a crunch beneath his feet and looked down to see bits of shell. Eric quickly turned around, trying to find the source of the noise. Was he being followed? Was someone else on the beach? He was so sure that he was alone, but now he felt uneasy. Who's there? Show yourself! For a moment, Jasper stood still. He was still invisible. He could sneak away. Eric didn't need to know. Eric picked up some pebbles from the ground and looked in the direction of the noise. Last chance! He put his arm back, getting ready to throw the pebbles, but then Jasper cancelled his spell, making himself appear before Eric. All right, you caught me, he gave in as he held his hands up. Don't throw those at me. Eric sighed and dropped the pebbles, but then he glared at Jasper. Were you following me? He demanded, not taking his eyes off Jasper. Admittedly, he was angry by the whole thing. I just wanted to make sure you weren't up to anything shady, Jasper admitted. He was caught. There was no point in denying it. Eric folded his arms. He refused to take his eyes off Jasper. What's that supposed to mean? Well, you have to admit your arrival coincided with some very strange things, Jasper answered as he stared Eric down too. He wanted answers, and he was going to get them. Why were you here? Who were you apologizing to? What did you do? It's none of your business, Jasper, the redhead snapped. First you tell me that I shouldn't be here, and now you're following me around and demanding answers from me? You can't have it both ways. It is my business when you just turn up in my life again after all these years. Eric scoffed at Jasper's response. Of course, make it about yourself. That is just classic Jasper. Jasper tried to protest, but Eric simply talked over him. Do yourself a favor. Stay out of my business. You're meddling in things you can't even begin to understand. So, you admit that there is something going on. I'm admitting nothing. But for both our sakes, let it go. Eric walked past Jasper to make his way back towards town, though he soon stopped and turned to face the other boy. And Jasper? What? If you have something you want to say it to my face. Don't do things behind my back. Before Jasper could respond, Eric had started walking again, and soon enough, he was gone. Jasper huffed in frustration. Who does he think he is? Telling me I can't investigate something he could be involved in. He's hiding something, and I'll get to the bottom of it. With that, he made his way off the beach and headed home. He went to his room and did some homework and more magic practice before he went to bed. Later that night, Jasper turned in his sleep, groaning, the day's events still clearly on his mind. He opened his eyes and sat up, looking out the window. It was still dark outside. Damn it, what time is it? He looked over at his phone on the side and pushed the button, squinting as the screen brightened up. 2 o'clock in the morning, he muttered as he ran a hand through his hair. I need to get back to sleep. He rearranged his pillows and lay back down, looking up at the ceiling as his eyelids started to droop. Just as they closed, they opened up again as the now familiar song echoed in his head. Not again, he groaned as he brought his pillow up against the sides of his head and pressed it tightly against his ears to drown it out. It seemed to work, and he started to go back to sleep, keeping the pillow pressed against his ears. Some time later, he opened his eyes again, but it was oddly peaceful. He sat up and went to open his window. It was locked. His mother must have come in earlier to lock it while he was asleep. Not that it mattered. He simply unlocked the latch and opened it, climbing out the window once more. He didn't even take the time to choose a direction. The beautiful melody in his head and his own feet knew the way. He just allowed them to take over as he walked in autopilot towards the beach. When he felt the sand crunch beneath his feet, he saw a shadowy figure towards the sea. Instinctively he approached, and it didn't seem to move at first. It just stared unflinchingly at him. As he got closer, the figure turned and began to walk into the sea, going deeper and deeper. Jasper arrived at the shoreline and without thinking, took a step forward into the water. The cold feeling didn't even faze him. He simply took another step forward, followed by another, onwards in that same rhythm as the water grew deeper. Jasper's head disappeared and reappeared with the waves before the strong tide pulled him under. In his haze, Jasper didn't once turn back or even try to swim against the current. He simply sank into the depths. That is the end of today's episode. I just wanted to take this time to thank you all for tuning into my podcast every week. It means the world to me to share my stories, and I just want you to know that I love and appreciate every single one of you. I look forward to seeing you all next week. Until then, leave the investigations to the professionals.